Looking at the northern region of this map of the Indian subcontinent, we find 18th century Punjab. At this time, it was a volatile crossroads trapped directly between a collapsing Mughal empire to the south and relentless Afghan invaders pushing in from the west. Caught squarely in the middle of this imperial crossfire was the Sikh community. Targeted by both empires with brutal campaigns of extermination, they were pushed out of their homes and forced to survive in the deep forests and harsh terrain. Under immense pressure, they adapted. Rather than forming a traditional, static army, the Sikhs organized themselves into roughly 65 scattered, highly mobile guerrilla warrior bands known as Jathas. But surviving in the shadows is very different from seizing control. The question is how a loose network of hunted rebel bands manages to achieve total dominance over an entire region. When the traditional structures of power collapse, stepping into that vacuum requires completely reinventing how an independent state is built and governed, entirely without a king. The first crucial step happened in 1748. The leaders of these scattered guerrilla factions gathered at the Dal Khalsa assembly in Amritsar. Instead of appointing a single supreme dictator to lead them, they explicitly rejected autocratic rule in favor of a decentralized network. They reorganized those 65 loose Jathas into 12 distinct formalized republics called Misls, an Arabic word meaning equal or alike. This map details how 12 Misls carved up the vast Punjab region. Each operated independently, possessing its own defined territory. But if an imperial threat emerged, they triggered a failsafe, merging their separate forces into a massive, unified military body called the Dal Khalsa. This structure provided the necessary local autonomy for quick, regional decision-making, while ensuring a formidable, coordinated defense against the massive armies of surrounding empires. Out on the battlefield, the Misls faced Mughal and Afghan forces that were massive, heavily armored, and notoriously slow to maneuver. To counter this, the Sikhs utilized a tactic known as the die fought. They executed lightning-fast, hit-and-run cavalry strikes, plunging into the heavy enemy lines to inflict maximum damage, and then immediately peeling away to physically exhaust their opponents. Their equipment was engineered for this strategy. The traditional talwar sword featured a sweeping, curved blade optimized for executing swift, close-quarters attacks from horseback. Once a strike was complete, the Sikh armies immediately retreated behind heavily fortified strongholds, neutralizing sluggish attempts by the empire to mount a counterattack. They dismantled traditional imperial armies by relying entirely on speed, attrition, and exploiting the rigid formations of their enemies. Winning battles secures territory, but maintaining true independence requires a functional economy. A state cannot exist without a reliable system of taxation. The Misls introduced the Rakhi system, a protection tax where villages paid roughly 1/5 of their harvest, significantly lower than oppressive Mughal and Afghan burdens. In exchange for this harvest portion, Misl armies provided active protection against bandits and imperial raids. Local farming populations eagerly opted into this arrangement because it guaranteed greater physical safety at a fraction of the cost of living under imperial rule. By establishing a consistent flow of revenue, the Rakhi system became the vital economic engine that transitioned the Misls from a rebel insurgency into a legitimate, functioning regional government. In 1783, this decentralized system reached its absolute zenith. The unified Dal Khalsa alliance marched directly into Delhi, the very capital of the Mughal Empire. They completely subjugated the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, forcing him to pay immediate financial tribute and legally concede the right to construct Sikh places of worship within the capital city. They cemented their regional dominance by hoisting their flag right at the gates of the heavily fortified Red Fort. But their highly effective system contained a fatal irony. Once the massive external threats of the surrounding empires were thoroughly defeated, the decentralized structure fractured. Without a common enemy to trigger the unified Dal Khalsa alliance, the peacetime independence of the 12 republics resulted in internal chaos. The Misls began fighting each other over territory and tax revenue. This internal friction created an opening. A young leader from the Sukar Chakia Misk named Ranjit Singh systematically exploited the chaos, eventually uniting the warring factions to establish the singular Sikh Empire in 1799. The decentralized network of the 12 Misks was an essential temporary bridge. It was a revolutionary system of governance that allowed a persecuted minority to survive annihilation, build an economy, and ultimately pave the way